Well, thank you guys for letting us come here and give our sermon on our mission trip that we just went on last month. This is a little bit of an interactive sermon, so you'll see some others come up here. But for those of you that don't know, I'm Amy Mosier. I married the best Mosier of the group, just so you all know. But yes, November 17th through December 3rd, we were on a mission trip in Kenya. So, as you can see, should I move? I'm good? Okay. And I really hope that our story here encourages your hearts as much as it changed ours on this mission trip, truly. Matthew 5:16, I gotta move so I can see, am I on the right page? This was kind of the memory verse that I think goes with our mission trip, with our theme, grounded in the Bible, focused on the mission. A lot of us are wearing our t-shirts today, and that's what it says. But the verse that goes with it is Matthew 5:16. Let your light so shine before others that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Everything we did, whether it be the construction, the vacation Bible school, or just building relationships in Kenya, was focused on Scripture. It wasn't about building ourselves up. It was about glorifying God and all that He did through us there in Kenya. So praise God for that. Clicker. All right, so we went on a trip through Maranatha Volunteers International. Show of hands, who's heard of that before? The organization. A good amount of you, good. This was my first adventure with them, and hands down, probably the best adventure in missions that I'll attend. We went with our leaders here, Anu and Kotesh, very faithful guides the entire way. This organization has hit over almost 90 countries, I believe, is what they've worked in. Their main goal is to help urgent needs, and they build churches and schools. As of date, the number, I believe, was 3,600 wells that they've dug, and over 17,000 building structures between churches and schools that they built. And we got to take part in that over in Kenya. All right, look at this good-looking group. Aren't we amazing? So there were 41 of us. Oh, you guys know what? I got to go back one screen. Do you see that picture on the right? And they're all looking up at Tyler, amazed by his height. There was something I was very proud of in Africa. My vertically challenged status came in handy because I was complimented. They thought I was only 34 years old. And Tyler, how old did they think you were? 57. So Africa is good for short people like us, okay? Just for future reference. It's good to be short. But yeah, back to our group. Oh, of note, Tyler is not 57 quite yet. Okay, so 41 of us went, okay? 16 of them were age 16 and younger. So a big group of kids went. And what an impact it had on us as well as Kenya. It was really neat to see there were 2 families that had 3 generations, so that made the trip a little bit more meaningful. We also had some people that lived as missionaries in the past. Others, this was their first missionary trip. And on top of it, there's a couple people, this was their first airplane ride ever. So we had a huge multitude of people that God brought together for a shared purpose on this mission trip. So amazing that we could all come together. And it started a little over a year ago with just an idea. Tyler brought it up and asked us, hey, what are your thoughts on maybe going to Africa? And I never backed down. Immediately I was all in. And the planning started from there. We did some fundraisers. We did Downtown Thursdays, if you guys heard of that, here in town. We were there. We did the Dodge Center citywide garage sale. We did farmer markets. We did letters to businesses and families. Sponsor a brick event at our church just so we could fundraise and make sure that no one had any type of financial difficulties to go. We all worked together so we could make it possible. And I think, yeah, Silas, you can come on up, bud. And I know we even had volunteers that heard of us talking about our mission trip that would donate money during tithes and offering times, and that was wonderful, a huge blessing for all of us.
We went to Kenya for nearly 3 weeks. We took 2 flights that were 19 hours in combination. We first flew to Amsterdam and then to Nairobi. And then we got to go to Bomet County, and then that's where we started off from going to build the school. We drove hour and a half. Oh, 6 hours from Nairobi to Bomet.
Our main goal on this trip was the construction of a school building. That was our main project. Abel, I'm going to have you come up, buddy. We split into two groups. We had a construction crew and a vacation Bible school crew. Abel was on our crew, so I'm going to have him tell his little story.
Today I want to talk about the construction. I was on the construction crew. We had to get up at 5:45 every morning, 5:45 a.m. every morning, and drive an hour and a half to our construction site. We worked until 3:30 p.m. and then drove an hour and a half back. It was long days. We built a 3-classroom school building using brick and mortar, 21 brick levels high. Once we passed the 8th level, we had to use the scaffolding. It was hard and uncomfortable at times and honestly exhausting, but it was worth it. Doing construction reminded me about Isaiah 6:8, where God asks, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And Isaiah responds, "Here I am, here am I, send me." Isaiah didn't ask how early he'd have to get up, how long the days would be, or how hard the work would be. He simply said, "Yes, that's what this construction taught me." Saying yes to God's mean it will be easy, and at times being willing to show up, lay one brick at a time, and then trust that God is building something bigger than what we can see. We may only carry bricks, but God is building classrooms, futures, and faith.
So this is a video, if it works, of our daily commute to our construction site. Will it work, Dennis? Nope, it won't work. Was it a smooth ride? It was the worst, you guys. It was the worst. Not for people who have headaches. It was adventurous, an hour and a half each way. It's just not letting me go to the next one. The next slide, oh, here we go. This is what we walked into on our first day on the job. A little nerve-wracking, but also exciting, knowing that God already set things in place for us. I learned here that my career as a nurse will not change, even though I had a great time with the construction and putting it together, but it definitely pushed my limits doing this construction site, but I loved what it taught me all in the time frame we were there. This is what original buildings look like over in Kenya. Not great. I believe this was the cafeteria. Yep. It was really neat to see the progression of the buildings, because I think there's only 3 projects left at this site. Very, very neat to watch. All right, here's a couple pictures of our crew. Like I said, we're a good-looking crew, hardworking too. Even the kids had a role in all of our construction sites. Vacation Bible School, like I said, they had a group, but as soon as they were done around lunchtime, they came back to our site and for a couple hours helped us out. Oh, and Tyler, there you are again. I caught you. Smiles, you guys. As you can see, every picture has smiles. Not once were we down and out or complaining. Look at that good group. Don't mess with them. They are a hard group of guys there. Beautiful scenery, too. The area that we were in. That region is gorgeous. While on this site, biggest lesson I learned was patience. One of the individuals on the trip told me that patience isn't just there when you wake up in the morning. You learn it by opportunity that you're faced with. And trust me when I say that the opportunities were plentiful working construction to learn patience. How hot was it? What? It is not hot in Kenya. It is not hot, no, surprisingly. It's very similar to Minnesota in the summer, like mid-70s, upper 70s, and then cooler in the evenings. Yep. All right, this crew right here, neither of them are here to defend themselves, so I'm going to go for it. Nick here was actually working with a torn shoulder and bicep, so praise God he was able to be there, and one of the hardest workers. True heart for God. My husband, on the other hand, you'd see him there playing tug-of-war with buckets, him and Nick, and then every evening, or actually after every lunch, you'd see him on the bottom left there taking his afternoon nap. They truly were hard workers. Never once did they put a hard hat on, but they were our more mud men. Definitely more mud. All right, so progression of our building. This is us, you guys, doing all this bricklaying. We did have guidance from, I'd say there was at least 8 men there helping us. They had the patience beyond description. They are so kind in everything that we asked for help with. Definitely not OSHA approved while we were there, but they were very safe and wonderful to work with. So nearing completion, roof is starting to go on. And like Abel said, it was 21 bricks high. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? That's what we did. So this is the dedication ceremony when we were done. It only took us 6 days to do this. Tyler and I in our best clothing there, receiving the certificate for helping out at Maranatha, or at Kimagoro School through Maranatha Volunteers International. It was an opportunity that I would love to experience again at another place. Here, this mission trip was more of an opportunity to give of ourselves and to love in a way that points way beyond us. And being a part of this school building was a gift that'll last far longer than I'll be alive. And so that's what really impacted me. It's a blessing that'll continue shaping lives long after all of us are gone. And it helped center our hearts on what truly matters. And truly grateful for that opportunity. And I know the Bible verse here, James 1:2-4, dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. And when I think about that verse, it's like I told you, my greatest lesson was patience. It didn't come easy. It really didn't. I had moments where I could have cried. I'm not a bricklayer. And so those were my challenges that the Lord helped me through and learn by helping others and allowing others to help me in the same instance. It was great. And we're supposed to consider it pure joy whenever you face those trials because it grows your faith. What a powerful statement that is. So through all that hard work and all those long days, the perseverance was doing its work, shaping us, drawing us closer to God in many ways for everybody. We're all different. And we returned home definitely changed. So awesome experience there. Al, I'm going to have you come up and share a little bit of your experience.
Good morning. Happy Sabbath. So my experience there while we were doing the physical work, Christina, Lori, Barry, Mary Beth, and a few others, and most of the children were doing the spiritual work. They were visiting other schools and churches and doing the spiritual. But we were doing, it was hard. It's hard work. People that do it all the time make it look easy. You know, it's setting blocks, blade blocks. And the people carrying the mud, it was hard work. But I've been working in many different places. Have you ever seen or you yourself have said things like, why is he doing that? Why am I not doing that job? I'm more qualified to do certain jobs. Why does that person have a better why? You know, always complaints. People are always complaining at work, right? But this was a hard job. But even though it was hard, Everybody that was there, all the children were willing to help. And I'd never heard a complaint. You know why? Because when you're doing work for Jesus, there is no room for complaints. And that's what I get out of this. There are many other things that we can share, but for construction, everybody was willing to work. And like I said, it was hard, but it was so satisfying to be there. I'm thinking about anywhere from 30 pounds, 25, 30 pounds, or maybe even more. Because I couldn't hold it quite well with one hand and then put it. It's one of the pictures there. The rebar, sometimes it was tall, and Josh is not here today, but I'm glad Josh was working with me. I'm like, Josh, it's your turn. But yeah, they were heavy. They were heavy. Any more?
Oh, yes. Okay, so Jared's not here. Here's my little story about this guy. He was part of the mud crew, him and Nick. And so while we're there, you're always working with another individual from Kenya, part of this group. And so he started to get to know the mud mixing guys. And so part of the conversation they were having, they asked Jared, they're like, so when you're not on mission trips, what do you do? And Jared's like, oh, well, my wife and I are nurses. And the men just kind of went quiet. And Jared thought, okay, well, that's a little awkward, but I need to be respectful and ask them what they do. So he's like, well, what do you guys do when you're not here on mission work? And they both looked at each other, looked at Jared, and like, well, we work and build things like men. And Jared's like, point taken. Let it go, and walked away. But yeah, he wanted me to share that it was 1 Corinthians 13, 6 and 7 was his verse that he took to heart on this trip. And it says, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, it always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. So the reason for him for this project that he says, it wasn't just to build something physical in Kenya, it was to practice a kind of love that works hard, stays humble, learns patience, and perseveres, even when it's uncomfortable. And that's the kind of love that Paul describes in 1 Corinthians. And that's the kind of love that we are trying to live out in that construction site. All right, VBS crew.
All right, I had the joy of being on the VBS crew, and I always joked around with the construction crew that we got the best of both worlds because we got to go out and be with the kids and get excited and be able to share the gospel, and then we would come back and eat lunch as a group, and then after that we would come and help out on the construction site. I don't know how much help we were, maybe we were a burden, but it felt nice to also be able to help do construction. So our vacation Bible school, as he said, we would wake up in the morning, eat a delicious breakfast, and then we would get on different buses. So there was a construction crew that went one way, and then the VBS crew that went another way. We went to 6 different churches. These were Adventist churches in the area, and we had a total of over 1,000 kids visit us throughout this time. And so our first VBS went really well. I think we had about 150 kids. It was hard to kind of count because you would start the program, and even as you were wrapping up, there was still more people coming. And it would just grow and grow and grow, which was such a blessing. And I have to say that with all of the different locations that we went to, the Kenyan kids were so well behaved. One of our days where we had over 300 kids, it was Sit-to-Wet, and it was a beautiful location. You kind of got to see, you had asked about the weather. We were up high, so we didn't have malaria up there. It was dry. It was probably in the 70s, and there was always a breeze. We had beautiful weather, and the area that we were in was gorgeous. They had tea crops that they would plant there. You would see the banana trees, avocado trees. Everything was really, really green. So going to these different churches was just absolutely stunning. So we went to the Sit-to-Wet church, and we had over 300 kids in a pretty smaller than your sanctuary here. And they had concrete, so you can imagine one little whisper how loud it would be, or if somebody dropped something, how loud it would be. And I could tell you that we could preach and we could talk to the kids, and all the way in the back they would hear us because it was dead silent. And we were talking about 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, up to 18-year-olds. They were so well behaved. And it really touched my heart because you would see the kids just running to the VBS, so excited. And I was talking with one of the pastors, and we were outside, and they had just begun singing, and all the kids are running, running, running. And he said, see over there on that other mountain, there are kids running from that village to come to our little VBS program. And I was just so touched by it because I thought, how many times do we have vacation Bible schools or programmings or whatever? It's almost a burden for us. Like, oh no, not another evangelistic series. When these kids are just so excited because they'd never had a vacation Bible school before. And it was just one day, and they were willing to run miles to come to our program. It was just really touching and humbling. They would sing this song. We would sing partially in English and then partially in Swahili. And Barry Mosier would say, who has a Bible? And they're in a crowd of 300 people, you would maybe see 2 or 3 hands put up. And then if you were to see that Bible that a child had, it was worn. It was ragged. We got a chance to give a ride of some of the girls who went to the Kimigora school where we built the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classroom there. And they had rode from one church with us to another. So we were on the bus with them, and we got to kind of try and talk with them as well as you can without being able to speak their language. And the girl had shown me her hymnal, and she had this tiny little hymnal that was so ragged, so well used, and she was so proud of it. And it really just touched my heart how well they use their Bible, or if they have it, or if they get a hymnal, how exciting it is to them. And it also was a great spiritual rebuke for me personally, because how many Bibles do I own? Am I reading my Bible? Am I that excited over a hymnal? We all have hymnals here. It was a good reminder to realize how blessed we are and that we need that faith like the little children. We also had, it was really nice about, speaking of kids and their kids being really well behaved, was our children was impressive. We had several different of the kids speaking. We had a lot of these kids who we would break out. We would first begin with song service, and then we would have they would talk on the Bible. We'd just focus on the creation story. And then after that, we would have a mission story, and then we would split for crafts and then activities. And a lot of these kids who are 11, 9 years old, 7 years old, they were leaders of groups. And it was really touching to see, James, who was 9 years old, he had a bunch of 2 and 3 year olds that he had, and he was trying to play kickball with them of some sort. And he was out there, and he had all 20 of them just looking up at him. And he was able just to lead out and be a great leader. And so it was really neat to see Isai did a great job, and Silas and Maggie. And it was just all the kids. They just did such a nice job. And it was so nice that they were a part of this service. Then we would have song service. Henry did a health nugget where he's going to talk about what he did. Then we did that skit. So that skit that you saw, we did right at the end. And as you can imagine, it was cute for us, but none of these children had seen costumes before. And so they loved it. They would press in close, and they would come out, and it was just so neat for them to see. And then after that, we would do a goodbye and dismissal, and we ended up, and I believe you're going to talk about it later, but we ended up handing out some books that were really special, which Amy will talk about later. So as we went to 6 different churches, over 1,000 kids, and it was a blessing. The kids, when you go to Africa, you see kids everywhere. But in Kenya, they're joyous, they're happy, they're excited, and so you could just tell that they loved worshiping God. And when they sang with their hearts. I know there were several times that we were singing together with them, and it just moves you, it touches you. You have children who really honestly do believe in it. All right, I think that's all for us. I'm going to hand it over, and Lori's going to talk about our crafts that we did.
Well, I'm Lori, and I was in charge of the crafts. And the crafts was on the creation, like the skit that the kids did. We did a great job. As you can see, this is Deborah, my interpreter. She was awesome. She was, I don't know how old she was, only 13 years old, but her ability to translate was amazing. And the craft, I needed everybody to help me because a lot of the kids did not know English. And if they did know English, it wasn't a lot of English that they knew. But Christina was talking about the kids and how excited they are. Picture this, being in the United States. In the summertime, when you're outside, do you ever hear that ice cream truck, going to neighborhood to neighborhood? Well, when you, in the U.S., when you hear that, the kids go running and they want an ice cream treat. Well, this is how I picture the kids over in Africa. They know what they see us coming, and they're running with that much excitement to learn about Jesus, to see who's there, new faces. It's amazing that the Lord told me to go. This is my first trip on a missions trip, and I got to get new relationships going that I'll have for a lifetime. And there's the crafts, and then I'm also going to be talking about the activities that we had. Bianca was in charge of the activities, and that was when they would go outside and do some playing. And we had a parachute, and that was, the kids really liked the parachute because there was a lot to do. And then we also had hula hoops. It's amazing what you can do with one hula hoop. And the kids really enjoyed that.
So I did the dental hygiene. And so we had this big model of teeth, and we would show them how to brush their teeth, the steps to brushing their teeth. And then we would ask them questions and then give them prizes like floss or toothbrushes. And then we'd get 4 volunteers, and they'd come up, and we put shirts in between them to act as plaque, and we got this big long rope, and we went between the teeth and got out the shirts, and at the end we gave them the shirts.
So Kibidula, if you guys know, that's where my in-laws went and lived as missionaries for quite a while in Tanzania. My father-in-law reached out to Kibidula, and they made these books for us. They came out to be at about $1 a piece, and we had 1,000 of them shipped to Kenya, and we handed these out. It's not the Bible, but it's kind of like a kid's Bible study in condensed form that we would have, and it's in Swahili. So this is what we handed out at the end of every VBS for the children. So what a lasting impact we were able to give to these kids that, like Christina said, most of them don't have a Bible. So this was one of the options that we were able to provide. Good picture there. So, and I know later we'll talk about other things that we gave out too. Amy, I think this is where you're going to come up right after me. Earlier you heard me say that a lot of people donated and helped support this mission trip. This is our sponsor, a brick event. Everyone who came to that gave us their name, and then we wrote their name on a brick within the school building. So there are people's names on there that sponsored us, and then everyone who was there working got to put their name on a brick. Very heartwarming. Thanksgiving Day, this was a big highlight. I'll let Amy come up and talk about that.
Our Maranatha team took such good care of us. And the food, like Christina mentioned, it was like a banquet every single day. The transportation, when people got sick, they took care of us. The excursions they lined up for us, everything was just amazing. Our trip went from mid-November to early December. And so we were there over Thanksgiving. And so on Thanksgiving Day, we went to the work site, and it was our last full day of work. We were kind of down to the wire. We still had 2 walls that needed more bricks, and we had to do as much of the cleanup as we possibly could. The next day was going to be the dedication. Everything had to be clean and ready. So we got back to the hotel late that afternoon, and after cleaning up, we were coming out of our room on our way to go down for dinner, and some of the kids from the group were excitedly telling everyone, "We've got to go up to the roof. We got to go up to the roof." Our Maranatha team had a surprise for us. They had researched how Americans celebrate Thanksgiving. Anu had traveled to Nairobi, 5 to 6 hours each way, in search of a turkey. Jared told us they don't have turkeys in Nairobi or in Kenya. They hauled tables and chairs, lights, candles, decorations up to the roof of the hotel, and they set it all up for us. They had prepared a Thanksgiving feast complete with bird, mashed potatoes, green beans, stuffing, cornbread. Many of us did not eat the mystery bird, but there was plenty for everyone to enjoy. And we were so touched by their efforts to make it special for us. That evening, we dragged our chairs back down to the room where we had our evening worship, and we set it all up in a circle, and we just went around and everyone shared 1 or 2 things that they were grateful for. And it was things like family in Christ, our Maranatha team, God's protection, because he did protect us, and the opportunity to serve. It was a wonderful time of sharing.
Yeah, the turkey was a big surprise, and as my husband and I were sitting down getting ready to eat, he just kept staring at the food, and he's like, "Amy, I don't believe there's any turkeys in Africa. This might be an ostrich." But thankfully, it was not an ostrich, but it was a very good meal. Very good. My clicker stopped. Oh, there we go. Who believes it's more blessed to give than to receive? Okay, that was another good Bible verse for this trip. These are just pictures of things that we were able to give. There was a laptop we donated to the local pastor there, a lot of clothing, and then the picture on the left are the 3 teachers at Kimagoro School. We were able to bless them with 3 huge first aid kits and an enormous amount of clothing. That's picture on the left is all the clothes that we gave and all of our shoes. On top of that, all of our construction gear, 41 helmets, all of our gloves, earplugs, everything we just left for them for their next construction site. And part of our VBS crew, I don't know if you saw pictures earlier, there was a big 55-inch screen TV providing our message that we were giving, and we donated that to the school at the end of our trip. Also, we gave a monetary donation to their Pathfinder group because they were lacking in quite a few things, so that was a great blessing. God Pods. Show of hands, who knows what a God Pod is? It's kind of like a Bible in electronic version, and I believe, is it solar powered? Does anyone know? Yeah, solar powered. A couple of people from our trip decided to purchase some of these and give them out. So here we are, a couple pictures of Lori Grimes handing out these God Pods and explaining how they work. And the God Pods were in Swahili. We also handed out a ton of soccer balls, volleyballs. So here's a couple pictures of our donations there. And they were so grateful, beyond grateful, you guys, for all of the items that we were able to give. So truly, it is better to give than to receive. All right, so a local church in Byron, Christ Lutheran Church, decided to help us as part of our mission trip. They donated about 180 pillowcase dresses. I'd never heard a pillowcase dress. But every Thursday morning, a group of 14 individuals got together over from fall till we left, like for a whole year, and they sewn all these pillowcase dresses. And we brought them over to Africa. They also purchased some baby clothing and some boys' uniform shirts and shorts. So we were able to bring this to Isai Village. That was the, you'll see a picture coming up. It shows the reality of Isai Village. Very financially deprived. Not much for resources, housing, anything like that. And so here's the children receiving their pillowcase dresses, some of their clothing. They were so overjoyed. The smiles on their faces when we handed them a brand new dress was beautiful. And I believe, Chris, is this where you're coming in?
So I was on the, I seem like I'm loud. I was on the construction crew as well. And when Amy had mentioned on that last day, on Thanksgiving Day, we were finishing things up, but there were the 2 interior walls that were separating the 3 classrooms that were yet to be finished. And on that last day, the majority of the group were doing cleanup. So they were making everything just as it should be for the dedication. But there were 3 of us specifically that focused on finishing those 2 walls. And we had been told initially that it was just going to be the 3 of us. We'd been working on the rest of the building. We had an idea what was going on. And when we got in there, there was actually going to be a full-time worker helping us out as well. And so initially I was, okay, but this could be good, right? Because then we'll be sure to get things done. We were instructed to work on the western wall first. Focus on that, get that done, then we'll move on to the eastern wall. And we, I think, fairly quickly came to the conclusion there was not communication taking place. The gentleman that we were working with wanted us to do a particular type of row, and I won't get into details, but there's differences. And we had been told that we were actually going to be putting in this U wall. And so he's like, no, we'll be doing this. And we didn't want to do things wrong. I went and checked real quick with the supervisor who had told us what we were doing and confirmed, indeed, this is what we're doing. Okay, so he accepted that and we kept moving, but we weren't understanding what it was he wanted, and communication was just, I guess, lacking. It seemed to me that he'd rather just get the work done and be done instead of working together and finishing this out. And my frustration with the lack of direction and the situation in general got to the point where it's like, there's the 3 of us plus him on one little wall section. I'll go do something else. So I talked to Amy, I talked to Bruce, who was also working with us, and then I talked to Seth, who was is Amy's brother who came. He was kind of our lead, and I was like, if you don't mind, I'll just go start on the other wall, and you guys do your thing. And so I was able to do that. Basically, I think there was a struggle going on in my own head. Yes, there was something going on, lack of communication. There was a struggle there, but self was rising up in me. And I did my best to not offend, but I wanted out of the situation. I perceived, whether correctly or not, that he saw us as an obstacle to getting things done. And looking back, I think I could have gone about things a lot more humbly and with more grace. I definitely could have tried to communicate with him and talked through and gotten understanding, but that's not what I did. Reflecting on the situation, God's reaffirmed in my mind that though it's important to do things correctly and to get things done right, if we're not talking about something that is God's word and the truth, probably more important is actually working with each other. It's that relationship that's more important than doing perfectly, if you follow me. Yeah, we were talking about it this morning in Sabbath school, and I was just holding myself back. But it really struck me after the fact that had I stopped, talked to him, communicated, I could have had a friend, I could have had understanding, and instead, I'm praying in my mind, what am I going to do, what am I going to say? But looking back, I was praying for God to help me get my will instead of what is your will in this situation. And my takeaways from this are that there was a couple of problematic words in my testimony: seemed and perceived. And they're problematic because they're very one-sided. If something seems a certain way, or I perceived something a certain way, that doesn't mean that's how things are. That's all in my head. Had I stopped and communicated, then I would have known, and perhaps there would have been no issue. So from here on out, I pray that when I have a job to do, I realize that yes, getting things done and doing a good job is important, but how I work with others, especially those with whom I'm struggling, is very important. And ultimately, a close connection with the master builder is crucial for ultimate success. To truly achieve the goal, I want to be like Jesus. Because I want that even the person I might be struggling with might see Jesus in me and want to know him too. So.
Al, I'm going to have you come up.
Okay, what does it say there? They shall make ark of shittim wood. That version doesn't say the word that I'm looking for. But anyways, when we were there, we saw these bushes or trees that were very, very thorny. Lots of thorns. I mean, they were at least 1.5 or 2 inches. They were huge thorns on those bushes. And they were covered of, every inch or every other inch. There was so many thorns that Chris actually said, you said that, right? It says, that reminds me of the crown that Jesus Christ wore because of us, because of our sin. But thanks to God that guided Amy to make a scavenger hunt while we were on the bus. And the scavenger hunt said something about, if you see an acacia tree, and when I heard that word acacia, what does it remind you? Does it ring any bells? Acacia? The Ark of the Covenant, or the sanctuary. So when I heard that, it brought me to the sanctuary. So I was intrigued. Where is that tree? I need to see that tree. So when we were in the safari, the driver, I asked him about the acacia trees. He says, well, there's at least 3 around here. There's 3 different kinds. There's the flat top. So that's what everybody was looking for, the flat top. But then he told me there's some that are called umbrella because they look like an umbrella. It's flat on the bottom, and it looks like an umbrella. But there was other ones that were just full of thorns that they call them whistling acacia, because when the wind goes through there, you can just hear this whistle. Shh, I don't know. That's what they told me. But that was my experience of being there, and just knowing that those acacia trees just made me think of the sanctuary and what Jesus did for us with those thorns.
As with anything, the devil always tries to take lead on what good work we're doing for Christ. And so a couple of the setbacks that we had on our trip, first of all, we got notification that our flights were going to be delayed. We could handle an hour and a half. Loaded up the airplane, sat there for about an hour, and they're like, hey, sorry, you got to get off the airplane. There's a mechanical issue. We got to try and fix something. And finally got back on the airplane, but you guys, we only had 17 minutes by the time we landed to hit our internationally connecting flight. Is that what you call it? 17 minutes from one big plane to the next in Amsterdam. Probably wasn't going to happen, but we sent a request out to our church. They prayed. Guess what? We made it. We truly made it. Our plane parked right next to our next flight. So literally one plane to the next, and it was almost 19 hours of straight airplane. A little rough. We all looked pretty good by the end of it. Like I said, we all kept smiling. This is the kids when we landed. So all smiles there. I think it was 1:30 in the morning, Kenya time. Another setback was the roads. Our bus almost went off the road one day. A little adventurous. And too bad the video doesn't work. That was a fun one, showing two of our guys who were notorious. When there was anything wrong, they were always in the presence of that trouble. It was my husband and my brother. So if there's a vehicle issue, they were always there. If there was trouble with our trip, they were the culprits. And I believe this is where Micah's coming up. Yeah, come on up, bud.
Okay, so there's this game park called Masai Mara, and we saw elephants, giraffes, monkeys, lions, hartebeests, gazelles, hogs, zebras, hippos, crocodiles, great gazelles, anteaters, tupies, wildebeest, water buffalo, impalas, ostriches, cheetahs, and a serval cats, secretary birds, hyenas, jackals, vultures, storks, and guineas. And we got to ride in a safari vehicle, and we would look out the top and then see all the animals out there, and it took a while to find lions, but it was cool how God made every single animal different.
What was your favorite animal?
My favorite animal was the lion. Well, elephant and lion. But
There was one morning we woke up, and this shows Henry how close the zebras were to our front door of our hotel rooms. Neftali?
Let me share with you a bit of history of the Maasai tribe. So they would kill lions with a group of other Maasai warriors, and whoever killed a lion first would get married. But now, since they had to preserve lions, they were decreasing in numbers, they decided a new way to attract people was to jump. They would jump as high as they could, and whoever jumped the highest would get married. Let's just say the others could jump way higher than us.
Way higher. Neftali did get 3 offers for marriage, though, so he did pretty well over there. This is just a video of our men attempting to jump, and keyword is attempting. It was quite funny to watch, though. Oh, the Maasai church dedication, you guys. This was probably the highlight of our trip. On the day that was supposed to be our jet lag recovery, it was planned for us to go visit a Maasai church that Marilee McNeilius was an instrumental part of. Dear friend to many of us, And it was so neat to see Mary Lee's love for Jesus all the way in Kenya, not just here in Minnesota. She loved children so deeply and believed that in encouraging and supporting their walk of faith through education. And she has funded and supported thousands of churches and schools all around the world. This church here in Kenya was the last one that I'm going to hold it together, that she funded. And we were honored to take part in the dedication ceremony. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Like I said, we were supposed to be dealing with jet lag, and mind you, I told you about that setback of our airplane. When we got to Nairobi, not one of our bags made it to Nairobi. So we are all in the same clothing for about 36 hours. We smelled okay. There's only one person that had their clothing with them. It was Tyler's mom, and she was so graceful with distributing her robe amongst people, so some of us could look decent for this ceremony. But they welcomed us with music, with their cultural dances, and their outfits. It was unbelievable how joyous they were for us being there. And to know that Mary's family was there, huge joy for them. They loved seeing that. We are all gifted with a shuka. That's the covering that we have right now. I don't recall what the sticks are called, but each of us got a stick to bring home too, and an African souvenir. And I believe most of the animals were the Great Five. Is that right, kids? Most of the animals were the Great Five. So we had a church service, some ribbon cutting for the church, and ribbon cutting at the school as well. And so it was Kimberly and Christina, so the grandchildren of Mary Lee McNeilius were there, and then the great-grandchildren also got to cut some of the ribbons and partake in the ceremony. And they chant and sing beautifully. But like I said, so neat to see that Mary Lee's love was not just in our Dodge Center church. It was all the way in Kenya, and her and Garwin were one of the reasons that we went on this mission trip with Maranatha Volunteers International. We were also encouraged to visit Kajiado's school. This was an earlier project that Maranatha Volunteers International put on, and it's completed now. It started off as a rescue center, but is now a school. So we got to visit it, and Donna, I put this picture in there for you. That's their library that you can see through the window. I appreciate all that you do in our library at Maranatha. But what a beautiful school. The kids really enjoyed it. We got to play some soccer with them. And then our crew, Kotesh and Anu, let us go visit and take a little tour of the Adventist University of Africa. Beautiful, beautiful area there. That community, it looks like you're on a safari. And, were you going to talk again? I don't remember. We made lots of friends in Africa. Lots and lots of friends, each one of us. So these are a compilation of friends, and Micah's going to talk a little bit more.
So at the school, there were a lot of kids. There was a boy, smaller kid, around 11, I think. His name was Ryan, and a lot of the kids at the school, like a lot of the boys, went down to the construction site, but like I said, his name was Ryan, and I made friends with him, and we worked a little bit down at the school together, and every day he would come out to the school and look for me. I was the only one with a red hard hat, so he could find me pretty well, but and we had a lot of fun together. But what he did a lot was be a little translator around the school building. So we would be there, and then we'd need help translating, and then he would be right by me, and then I would ask him to ask the guy to speak in Swahili, and then he would talk to me in English. mission trip, we got to see the Great Rift Valley and the Masai Mara, the Indian Ocean, because of the supermoon. That happened, the tides were really far out. We were able to find so many starfish. Matthew 8:27 reads, even the winds and waves obey him. We saw this effect in Africa.
What's the slide up?
Kenya has a lot of tribes. These are the Maasai people. They wear shukas. Instead of singing, they chant. The wise build the houses. They are made out of cow poop, ash, clay, and stick. They are small. They don't have electricity. And they don't buy things at stores.
Silence. Silence. You're up, bud.
First Thessalonians 5:18 says, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. We went on a mission trip a month ago. Today, I wanted to talk about thankfulness, like bathrooms, for example. The worst and best bathroom we saw is shown on this slide. I don't know if you see it well enough, but it is literally a hole in the earth. And some Kenyans have a smile on their face, even in harsh conditions like that. Also, the houses. In this one valley, we saw these shacks. They were so packed together. I don't think they even had running water. Speaking of water, the water they drink is so murky. Cows were in one of the rivers that we saw. Here we can walk 15 feet and get crystal clear, healthy water. We're so blessed here in the U.S.
We got to interact with a lot of the Pathfinders and adventurers over in Africa. Everywhere we went, they marched us in to church services or the dedication service. It was quite interesting, and they also held it was a master guide training session while we were at Kimagoro School. So Tyler and I attempted our skills up on that upper left picture of their marching, a little different than how we do it here in the States, but still an adventure. This was our song that we finished our church dedication with. It's our closing song. So if we can, who's all leading the song for today? When we all get to heaven. They sung it beautifully in Africa. The voices just ring out. So let's actually sound them as we sing our closing song here. 634.
633. Oh, when we go to heaven?
Sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing His mercy and His grace. In the mansions bright and blessed, He'll prepare for us a place. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. While we walk the pilgrim pathway, clouds will over what a day of rejoicing that will be when we all see Jesus. We'll sing and shout the victory. Let us then be true and faithful, trusting, serving every day. Just one glimpse of Him in glory, will the toils of life fade. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be when we all see Jesus. We'll sing and shout the victory. Onward to the prize before us, soon His beauty will behold. Soon the pearly gates will open, we shall tread the streets of gold. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be when we all see Jesus. We'll sing and shout the victory.